When the bus driver in the Bronx called out her name, Christine C. Quinn did not hesitate. The city council speaker, and, as of Sunday, official candidate for mayor, bounded up the vehicle's steps and gave him a warm handshake as passengers, unbothered by the delay, began to applaud. "She's got my vote," the driver, William Adams, said as he started to ease his BX5 bus back into traffic. "And everybody that gets on my bus." It was a scene nearly unimaginable in this buttoned-up era of City Hall. Mayor Michael R. Bloomberg, after all, is not known for greeting New Yorkers with an enthusiastic public display of affection. But Ms. Quinn, who formally kicked off her campaign on Sunday with a glossy biographical video and a day of meet and greets around the city, is hoping to evoke an earlier era of hands-on, heart-on-the-sleeve leadership as she courts voters and works to distinguish herself from Mr. Bloomberg, who remains a close political ally. Ms. Quinn's aides plan to deploy her into dozens of neighborhoods ahead of the coming Democratic primary contest, calculating that their best weapon in a potentially tight race is the outsize, off-the-cuff personality of the candidate, or at least a carefully curated version of it. If Sunday is any indication, there will be hugs aplenty. Ms. Quinn doled them out with equal fervor to toddlers, hecklers and strangers alike. In Brooklyn, a man who stopped to complain about the economy ended up locked in an embrace with Ms. Quinn, who delivered a kiss to his cheek. As she walked along Southern Boulevard in the Bronx, Ms. Quinn reached through the open passenger side window of an idling SUV, making a point of touching a woman's shoulder as she introduced herself. The gesture, which seemed to initially take Milton Rivera by surprise, instantly endeared her to Ms. Quinn. "She is a people person," Ms. Rivera said later. "You can just tell." Still, Ms. Quinn's campaign team, led by a consulting firm that worked on Mr. Bloomberg's mayoral bids, took precautions, scoping out businesses in advance for her to visit and surrounding the speaker with a hive of supporters, some of them relatives and volunteers who had traveled into the city from afar. Ms. Quinn, 46, also took pains to avoid mentioning the man she hopes to replace in City Hall. Asked explicitly if Mr. Bloomberg had done enough to help the city's middle class, she did not utter his name. "We all need to do more," she said when pressed, before an aide ended the interview. Ms. Quinn's close relationship with the mayor could prove politically treacherous as she appealed to New Yorkers who remain frustrated by her efforts to change the city's term limits laws and allow Mr. Bloomberg to seek a third term. That tension surfaced when Herbert Goldman, the retiree in Forest Hills Gardens, confronted Ms. Quinn outside the bank on Continental Avenue in Queens. "Why did you push Bloomberg for a third term?" Mr. Goldman shouted. "Give me 1 second, Ms. Quinn replied politely. "Hurry up," came the response. When the two met, Ms. Quinn acknowledged that some New Yorkers might disagree with her actions. Mr. Goldman, 77, was unmoved, and he later complained that Ms. Quinn, in shaking his hand, had been reluctant to release her grip. "She was holding my hand for minutes," he said. Still, other moments demonstrated Ms. Quinn's intimacy and ease with the public. She delighted the young girl by trying on her spangled sunglasses. Greeting a sullen man in Brooklyn, she could not resist teasing him about his Knicks cap, asking, "You don't get in trouble in this borough wearing that hat." At a pizzeria in Forest Hills, Queens, she spent a few minutes debating environmental policy with a patron before learning he lived in upstate New York, and, therefore, could not vote in the mayor's race. Ms. Quinn let out a thunderous chortle. "Well, geez," she said, "why am I talking to this guy at all?" The line earned her a smile. In lieu of a speech, Ms. Quinn formally declared her candidacy through the biographical video, where there is little sign of her image as a hard-nosed deal-maker who maintains an iron rule over the city council. Instead, she is seen in a warm, welcoming pose, clad in a fuzzy fuchsia blazer, chatting amiably at the counter of a 1950s-style diner complete with a covered glass cake stand. Accompanied by piano music, Ms. Quinn reminisces about her father's union activism and middle-class upbringing on Long Island. She becomes misty-eyed as she describes her mother's death from breast cancer when Ms. Quinn was a teenager. Ms. Quinn, who married her longtime partner, Kim Catullo, last year, has attracted national attention for the historic nature of her bid to become New York City's first openly gay mayor. But the 5-minute video, despite its personal touch, includes no reference to Ms. Catullo, or even that Ms. Quinn is gay. Asked on Sunday about the omission, Ms. Quinn said the video was intended to tell voters something new. "It would be hard to imagine that New Yorkers don't know that I'm a lesbian," she said, adding that she was incredibly proud to be the council's first openly gay speaker. The announcement on Sunday was essentially a formality for Ms. Quinn, who has spent years preparing a bid for mayor. Early polls show her with an advantage over her Democratic rivals, but that lead could prove illusory as more voters begin to pay attention to the race in the months leading up to the primary contests, which are expected to be held in September. Quinn campaign officials would not disclose the cost for the video,